Hello and welcome back to Down to the Tyre. Today I'm joined by a disability nurse, a motorsport nurse volunteer who makes content about the medical side of motorsport on TikTok and Instagram. It's Jessica, aka the Nursing Formula. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm really good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you as well. Thank you so
Good.
much for coming on the podcast. I'm so excited to talk all about you, your job, what you do, your content, but then also we're going to have some fun and talk about some of the current things that are going on in Formula One as well. But firstly, I just
Love.
want to know more about what you do in your career because I think that's so interesting. And I don't think I've seen many people making content on TikTok and Instagram who work in the nursing industry.
Yeah, so I'm a nurse. I've been a nurse for 11 years. I've done hospital nursing, I've done children's hospice nursing, I've done children's mental health nursing, and at the moment I'm at a college for young people with disabilities. Um, and my previous role in the children's hospice was also a lot with complex needs and disabilities. So I've kind of been doing that so I was there for 5 years and I've been at my current job for nearly 3 years. So that's been mostly my whole career really. So disability has kind of always been what I like to do. And yeah, so I used to be a sister in children's hospice. I left there because I had a child and obviously it was um, long days and stuff. I didn't want to miss out on too much. So now I just do my 2 shifts a week, which is lovely. And then that's kind of it. I love my job. I think it's an amazing thing to do. I think we get a lot of grief in the press, and I think there's always something going on. There's always some nurse bashing or something. So it's just nice to be able to kind of say, we're nurses and we like what we do, and because I feel like sometimes we get it's a bit of a slog sometimes, especially with things like the NHS and obviously the way it is at the moment. And I think being like frontline, you kind of get all the grief. So I'm kind of trying to say, no, it's good. Don't worry. Well, it's good to be a nurse. It's fine. Because I think, again, like student nurses are dropping, nurse numbers are dropping. So yeah, so I kind of like to be, so not only would I like to do kind of motorsport content, but I also want people to kind of watch my content and think, oh, actually, like you don't just have to be a nurse in a hospital, or you don't have to do one thing. There's so many different things you can do. And there's even nursing roles in motorsport, so you can actually connect the two together. So if I can sort of try and make younger people actually think, do you know what, I never really thought about doing that, but actually I could do that. That's definitely an opening for me. But yeah, so that's it. I'm just a little old nurse doing my 2 shifts a week. And then so obviously it gives me a bit of free time now, which is nice.
Because honestly, when I saw that you were a nurse, I was thinking, how on earth does she make such high quality, good content alongside that? So I guess
Yeah,
doing those 2 shifts helps because it
two
frees up
shifts. My
time.
child's at school. Yeah, my child's at school. So I mean, I say that I don't feel like I've got that much free time, but yeah, I think otherwise I don't think I'd be able to be as, not that I make that much content. I try to kind of do one informative video a week. The rest are usually kind of just a bit of fun. But yeah, because I just feel like I've got no time. But no, that is my 2 little night shifts and then my child being at school. Otherwise, I think I'd be, not much.
And we mentioned just before we started recording this that your child is a motorsport fan as well.
Yeah, yeah,
Supporting a mixture of Charles Leclerc and Alpine at the moment.
yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, I think it was just the glimpse of the pink car that kind of got him. He sort of said, "Oh, I don't." It started off with the red team. That was obviously where it all started because kids and red cars. So he then loved Charles Leclerc. I don't know why he went to Charles Leclerc. I don't know what it was between him and Carlos. I don't know what the thing was. So then he just started shouting. So every time the race is on and a red car flew past, oh, that's Charles Leclerc. I was like, no, that's not Charles Leclerc, but carry on. And then yeah, he used to, and then recently he's been saying, "Oh, I like the pink car," and I was thinking, "Oh, I won't really call it pink, but I think that little tiny bit of pink is enough." But no, I think he says that, but actually, when we watch races, he's still very much a Charles Leclerc fan. So I feel like that's always going to be the thing. But I feel like he's just having a little look about, seeing what else is out there, feeling the waters. But I think he's a Charles. I think he's a Charles fan deep down.
I mean, in terms of results, it's better to be a Charles fan than it is to be an
Yeah,
Alpine fan at the moment. But I'm
yeah.
curious about who you support and who you're rooting for when you're watching Formula One.
So I'm actually, well, I'm a Danny fan, but and have been for a long time. Obviously, when it all became a little bit, fraught, and he was kind of dropped, and that whole thing happened, and sort of when he left Red Bull and things, it kind of got a bit sticky. I still loved him, but I sort of was a bit looking elsewhere. I feel like I've been just window shopping and seeing what else is out there. So I do really like Max, which I know is controversial, but I just like the way that he kind of came in very young, very feisty, and kind of kind of wiped the floor with everyone a little bit. And I kind of just enjoy. So that was kind of the reason why. But actually, the longer I've been watching it and the longer I've kind of watched more media stuff, I actually kind of realized that I do actually like his personality and I like him as a person. Whereas I think before it was oh, I liked him because he was he didn't give a shit. He was totally I'm going, I'm getting there, I'm winning, I'm doing this. And I quite like that. I like drivers who, give a bit of something. But actually, over the last few years, seeing the things, because, the media and stuff, when I was younger, that wasn't a thing. Being in my 30s, when I watched it when I was a child, you didn't have all the YouTube and, you didn't have, it was literally just the race and that was kind of it. So you didn't really get to know many of the personalities. But actually, so watching videos recently with Max, especially Max and Daniel, I think the YouTube that sort of started, 2017, sort of 2018, that kind of thing, it really showed me actually they've got quite good personalities, and that kind of took me then to Max. So I'd say now, I mean, I say I root for Max, but I feel like that's kind of pointless. I feel like he's going to win without me rooting for him. But I do always root for Danny. I do always want Danny to do well. And so I'm a little bit torn between the two. So
That's
hopefully nothing ever happens again between them that I've got to kind of, pick sides. Because I don't think I could.
Honestly, I feel like rooting for Max at the moment. You're the wisest of the bunch of us because you're the one who's going to be happy.
I know. And that's the thing, I think as well, when obviously when it was all kind of going down sort of 2020, 2021, obviously being from the UK and a lot of my family are Mercedes fans, you were kind of automatically a Lewis fan. Mm-hmm. And I think that's, I love Lewis. There's nothing sort of about that. But I just think you're kind of programmed to be a Lewis fan. And particularly back then, Lewis was obviously doing, amazingly. So I think for me as well, I kind of wanted to be a bit different. So I think all my family were Lewis fans and I wanted something else. So I think that's kind of, and then obviously 2021, when the whole showdown happened, it was that kind of really was I'm actually really rooting for Max now. And I felt really bad because I felt like I was going against my country and everything. But no, I really, really wanted Max to win. I was proper rooting for him. So yeah, I think that kind of swayed a little bit towards Max as well. It sort of took I kind of stayed with Danny for a bit, but then I think that kind of I was really rooting for him to win that year. But yeah, no, so Max and Danny. I'm a Red Bull girl.
This is actually the first time I've interviewed someone who's a Red Bull fan, so I'm really intrigued to hear, because I think everyone's getting a lot of negative press at the moment about being boring, especially yourself. You've said you've been a fan for a while now. There's always been periods of dominance, and I feel like people always say it's boring when there's periods of dominance, but I've seen a lot of people saying that this period of dominance is even more boring than the previous ones. And I'm intrigued to hear your perspective on that, both as someone who's watched F1 for a while, but also as a Red Bull fan yourself.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, obviously, I can't speak for, you know, other people, because obviously it's not boring for me because the person that I like is winning. So great. But I could totally see that, you know, I can't remember me feeling bored when we used to watch Lewis. But then I was a lot younger and I didn't watch it like I watch it now. I dipped in and out. It was on because my family watch it. And we've always had it on. But yeah, I wouldn't say I was, you know, an avid watcher, but I don't think I would ever say it was boring, but I suppose it was seeing someone win, you know, most races. And the same now, like, but in my argument, it's kind of like, well, what do you want them to do? Do you want them to just not? And you think, you can't say, Max, could you just slow down? Could you just, you know? And I think there's always controversy about, you know, cost caps and, you know, cheating and all that kind of stuff, which, you know, as an outsider, we'll never know, you know, what's actually happening. But yeah, like, I can see why people think, oh, can we just, and don't get me wrong, last week with Carlos, I was absolutely buzzing. And I know this, and I've always said I really want Lando to have a win. And, you know, I've even said out loud, like, I would be happy for Verstappen to have a very mild crash, not hurt, just very, very mild, you know, a little cheeky little, you know, little blunder, just so Lando could win. So I think it's, you know, I can see that it's having Max win every single time with so many, you know, so much advantage. Yeah, it's going to be boring. But then I think you sometimes need to look at like the middle part of the grid. And I know that particularly when we watch it, I like the fact that especially Sky, they do tend to film a lot of the middle of the pack. So you kind of have to ignore the sort of first person and maybe the second and kind of focus on the real racing that's kind of in the middle. But as people have said before, you know, this happened with Lewis. He used to win races. He was winning races way ahead of everybody else. Mercedes were the team to beat. They were the team that everybody was, you know, saying things about, the same as Red Bull, people gossiping about, you know, what's been spent and things. So yeah, I think I could see where people are coming from, feeling a little bit bored, a little bit deflated and thinking, oh, for God's sake, can we just have, you know, a bit of racing, a bit of battle, I suppose. You want a battle, don't you? You want someone to have to win, but work for it. You don't want them to just be able to just, you know, fly around and win it. You want them to do something. But on the flip side, you know, you can't really ask Max to do anything different. You can't. And I'm sure it won't last forever. I very much doubt that Red Bull, especially the way things are going at the minute, I wouldn't be surprised in the next couple of years that they have a bit of a downfall, and then McLaren, who are doing really well, are going to kind of spring up. You don't know. So I don't think these periods will last forever. I think they just go through stages. I think different teams are going to have different results. But yeah, I don't think the Red Bull dominance will last for long, probably. Yeah, I think someone like McLaren could, even Aston Martin, to be fair, you know, they had really good potential, especially sort of last season, and kind of this season, I suppose. But even teams like that, like, you know, you don't know what they're going to pull next year, and you don't know what's going to happen in 2026 when all the all the different regulations come in, and you don't know what's going to happen with Ford and Red Bull, because I know there's been some controversy between those. So yeah, who knows? I think you only have to. I find myself, I don't look too far. I try to look at race by race, because, you know, you could say, oh, what if this happens? And you think, we just don't know what's going to happen. It could all come crumbling down. I mean, kind of not like, sounds awful to say, but, you know, very much like Mercedes. It was, you know, they were doing amazingly, and then 2021, it all kind of came down. And since then, they've really struggled to sort of pick up the pace. So yeah, just hold on tight. It will I think it will become a bit more, you know, I think it's going to get better over the years. But yeah, just need to tell Max, just ease up on that pedal, just just brake just a little bit, just come on, a little bit closer, keep the gap a little bit. But yeah, I don't know.
I feel like it's the type of thing where the sport is what it is. And I think it's a lot more enjoyable when, as a viewer, you accept it for what it is rather than kind of wishing something different was happening. Like if you just kind of appreciate, wow, Max is doing really well here,
Yeah.
it almost becomes, I think, more enjoyable as a viewer than if you're watching it thinking, oh, I wish this was happening in a different way.
Yeah, I think as well, like I think it's nice sometimes just root for everyone. Like you know, I watch it and sometimes I find myself rooting for different people. Like I think, you know, you kind of have to, everyone's got their drive and everyone's got their team, but actually when it comes to a sport, it's nice to kind of want everyone to do well. And, you know, like I would love nothing more than Lando to get his first win. And I was absolutely delighted with Carlos when he won. I thought it was amazing. And, you know, when Verstappen obviously didn't like DNF'd, I was gutted, but I was like, okay, gutted for a couple of seconds, and then I was like, okay, right, you know, show goes on, like what else is going to happen? So yeah, I think you just kind of have to sometimes forget about, you know, your drivers and your teams and just kind of root for who's in front of you and kind of just watch the race for what it is. Some races are boring, like as in tracks, and you know, especially I think it was Miami, I think last year or year before, maybe 2022. I think there was there was nothing happened. It was very much like thing. And I think that happens, and you kind of just have to go, okay, like it's like football matches. Some football matches are just boring, nobody scores, and you think, what a waste. What a waste of my time. But you know, you watch the next one, then you get back into it and you think, okay, like we're back now, it's still different. So yeah, I think it's just one of those things. I think every week is different, and you just have to kind of watch it because you enjoy it, not so much because, you know, you want someone to win or not do well, or just watch it because you enjoy it.
That's honestly one of the reasons I really like F1, because I don't really have a particular driver that I am massively rooting for. I'm kind of just happy no matter what. Whereas I feel like with the football comparison, I feel like with football, everyone kind of has their team, and if their team don't win, they get really upset about it, which is fine. But like with F1, I like the fact that I can kind of come out of it at the end and be happy no matter what.
Yeah. I was totally fine last week. Like I was upset for a second, then I was like, oh well, life goes on, kind of thing. Like, you know, there's certain races where, you know, if something happens, obviously not recently, but you know, when things have happened with Danny and stuff, like I get annoyed. I think, oh fuck's sake, like I really wanted him to do well, but then you think, well, you know, he's out now. Like, let's not. There's someone else that's gonna have, like last week with Carlos. I think because it was Carlos as well, and I think there's a lot of, obviously, you know, I really was rooting for him to win because of everything that's been happening with him. So yeah, you kind of just have to, you know, you like everyone really. They're all, you know, they're all great guys. So you kind of just gotta, you know, be happy. I think if you get upset about people, you know, not doing so well, I think it'll take over your life. I can't have any like bad mood. I'll be terrible if I get in a bad mood.
Honestly, I wanted to ask you a question as well. We touched on it briefly in the intro, but in your TikTok and Instagram bio, it says that you're a motorsport nurse volunteer. I really wanted to ask you more about that, what you do, where you do it, etc., all of that stuff.
So I do it at my local racetrack, which is Castle Combe. So it's just a very local racetrack. So basically, every racetrack has to have a medical team if they're having race meetings. So Castle Combe has, I think it's about 10 weekends a year-ish. Very low key, like very kind of, they have their own championship, and then they have like sort of visiting races. So in the medical team, there'll be like a chief medical officer and like a manager who kind of usually work there like full time. That's kind of their they're in charge of keeping the medical center up together. And then we'll have so I think Motorsport UK have particular like numbers. You've got to have a certain amount of doctors, you've got to have a certain amount of paramedics, rescue, fire, etc. So every circuit, I think you have to have, I'm sure my chief medical officer said to me that they should have 4 nurses But I think that kind of depends. If you're at somewhere like Thruxton, Silverstone, Brands Hatch, I think three, that would make more sense. But with Castle Combe, because it is quite a low key racetrack, and they don't have super big races. They make do with doctors and paramedics and first aiders and things like that. So like yesterday, I was the only nurse there. But there might be I think there's about 2 or 3 of us on their books, and it's just voluntary. So you just do what you can. So at the start of the year, they ask you what days you can do, and then you just so yeah, we just kind of have a medical centre. So you're either based in the medical centre or you're based in the medical car. So the same as like Formula One, the medical car sits behind the grid. So in Castle Combe, you do 1 or 2 green laps behind them, and then it's a rolling or standing start. So the medical will sit in the medical car behind and go with them for the first lap. We'll then tuck in into the track, obviously, and then continue. So yesterday in the morning, I was in the medical centre. I saw 4 drivers, and then in the afternoon, I was in the medical car, which is amazing because
so cool.
You are just flying round the circuit. We did 10 races in the afternoon. So half of them there's 2 medical cars. So one medical car does one, you're in the pits, and then you swap. So I think I did 5 or 6 in the medical, as in going round chasing the cars. And some of the speeds we get up to is just crazy. And I'm sort of sat in the back because we've got a doctor. So you have a medical car driver who is usually they're like ex-racers, or they're very good at driving. And then you have the doctor, and then you have someone else. So that could be a paramedic, a first aider, a nurse. So yesterday I was the 3rd person in the car. So what we tend to do then, so I only had to get out once yesterday when someone went into the tyres. So there's a rescue unit kind of with us that has a paramedic in it. So it's amazing how many medical staff there are in this whole track, because it's only a small track. There was 3 ambulances with 2 paramedics in each. There was 2 medical cars with 2 doctors, a nurse, first aider. There was a rescue unit with a rescue, so someone who's trained in rescue, or 2 people that's trained in rescue, and then the 3rd person was a paramedic. So when I had to get out for one, he crashed into the tyre wall. He opened his own door and he got himself out. So which would be, for us, would be a green because they're walking. You literally pop them straight into the rescue unit with the paramedic, and then they just go off to the medical centre. And then we get back to then what we were doing. So the medical car doesn't tend to really do the kind of taking them back to the medical centre. That will kind of be the rescue unit, and then they'll come back and join with us. But yeah, it's as a motorsport fan, it's incredible. Like, even if you're not medically trained and you do first aiding, you can still volunteer in the medical team. But the Castle Combe that I volunteer at, I think they're the only racetrack that it's mandatory if any driver has any type of crash, collision, even if they break down but they stumble to get out the car, they have to be seen in the medical centre. A lot of places, if they get out the car and they're fine, they can just kind of go back to their spot and carry on driving, but they could potentially carry on driving in the next couple of hours. But we would have to see everyone in the medical centre. So sometimes the ones that I looked at, particularly yesterday, are the kind of non-injured. They've had a crash into the tyre wall, but they're totally fine. They've walked out, no problem. And we just do like a concussion check. That's kind of the only thing we really do. It's a set of obs, so like blood pressure and heart rate and temperature, check their blood glucose, and then basically we do like a concussion check, so squeezing your hands, walking on tiptoes, just to make sure that they're okay, check their pupils, and we sign them off to say yes, they can carry on racing, then off they go. But the previous chief medical officer brought that in because Before that, you didn't have to be seen if, A, if you didn't want to, B, if you felt okay. But actually they were noticing that people were getting missed, and a lot of things can happen like later on that day. So if you take someone to medical centre, you say, they're absolutely fine, and they go off, actually they could become unwell later on the day. So at least if everyone's been seen, you can kind of start to see little signs, whereas if they didn't come to medical centre, you might not ever see those signs. So it's brilliant. It's really good fun. It's really great fun. I recommend anyone that's got a slight interest in medical or anything like that, do your first aiding course, and then you can be part of it. Even like marshalling, it's very similar. It's just that you're obviously not in the medical centre, but if you love anything like any type of motorsport, being a marshal is so good. It's such good fun. And but yeah, no, it's great. As a motorsport fan, it's amazing. As a nurse, I really enjoy it, but as a motorsport fan, I'm like, this is the best thing ever. Like, be in that car just flying around the circuit is just incredible. Absolutely love it. And I didn't really know much about it until quite recently, really, because I just never really thought about it. I never really put two and two together. And then I emailed my local track and just said, is there anywhere, because I knew that Silverstone and things had races, had nurses, sorry. But they're quite, that's quite a big scale. The nurses that they have in Silverstone, I think, are kind of nurses that work in that area in their local hospital, and they kind of come in for the races. So that was kind of a bit more high tech than what I wanted. I just wanted something quite local, quite sort of low key. But yeah, I emailed Castle Kuma and said, is there a place for me? And they were like, yeah, that'd be brilliant. When can you do? And I was like, oh, okay. And then, yeah, they got me in quite quick. So no, it's been great. I think it's, best thing I've done. If I could do it full time, I would, but I don't know where I could do it full time. I'd have to keep looking, but no, love it. It's such good fun. It's such good, and the drivers are lovely as well. Like the drivers you meet, and they're like, and it's, bless them, it's, well, obviously because they come in because they've crashed, so they're not always very happy. So being able to kind of say, like, let's just get through this. Their heart rate's through the roof. I'm trying to get their heart rate down, and all they're thinking about is, oh, I'm so pissed off. And you're going, no, don't think about that now. Think about that later, because I need your heart rate to come down. And the people are lovely, and everyone's motorsport fans, so you can kind of chat, and everyone's got different opinions and different ideas. And yeah, it's great fun. It's really great fun. And it works perfectly for me because it's literally two of the things I really enjoy to do. So I couldn't really ask for much more.
Literally, like, just combining them. I think it's so cool. And I'm such a huge advocate, because I think there's a lot of people who are big motorsport fans who don't realise there are these tracks around the UK that are so accessible. I mean, I live right near Donington Park, which is owned by the same people as like Brands Hatch, Silverstone, not Silverstone, it's Netterton, like circuits like that. And I go there all the time, and it's like, what, like 20 quid a ticket? And I think obviously there's a lot of debate about motorsport being inaccessible nowadays, which the prices for F1 races are insane.
Oh, yeah.
But
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But I always encourage people, in whatever capacity, whether it's going down to volunteer or whether it's just going to an event, I think just supporting the grassroots local tracks in the UK is just such a good way to get involved in motorsport, not at the F1 level, but still at such a valuable and rewarding level.
And actually, I feel like the lower sort of league races are more fun, like, because the way they fly in those little blooming Renault Clios just around that track, like, it's I think it's sometimes more impressive, like seeing some of them cars drift around corners. Like, you don't see that in Formula One very often. So I think actually sometimes if you want a real motorsport experience, your local £15 on the gate, they're the ones you want to go to, because they're so much better, they're so much more fun, and you do get real racing, you get real, like, so I think if anyone, there's so many circuits as well, there's circuits everywhere, and even if they're really small, like even like go-karting circuits, there's loads of those that do weekend racing, and I mean, there's 2 or 3 just near where I live. So there's plenty of places you can go. But yeah, Formula One tickets are just lemon expensive. So, and actually, I know people always say to me, I've got friends who go, why would you want to go and watch it? Like, you just sit there and they go past, and then that's it for like a couple of minutes, and then they come past again. And I go, well, that's okay, fine, you're kind of right, but that's not, that's not why you want to go. But yeah, so you think if you go to these races, these local races, there's constantly cars flying past, and some, especially places like Castle Combe, there's kind of banks, so you can sit at the top of the bank, so you can kind of see like most of the whole track, which you're very unlikely going to get that in things like Formula One and sort of higher league races. So yeah, I think go local. I think it's so much more fun.
I completely agree. Honestly, one of the biggest messages from this podcast, especially for the people who are saying F1 is boring at the moment, just go and watch other stuff. Yeah. Go and support other stuff. That is
go and see some Renault Clios.
Yes.
Mini Coopers, they were flying around as well yesterday.
They are crazy. They are
flying around the track.
I've seen the minis so many times. Yeah. They're bonkers. They're just crazy. Yeah. Like, it's insane. Some of the like crashes I have seen in Mini Cooper racing, and luckily every driver has always walked away okay, but some of them are insane, like terrifying.
Yeah, the first crash we had yesterday, there was so much damage. We were delayed by about an hour and a half, 2 hours, because it took them so long to rebuild the tyre wall. He was absolutely fine, not a scratch on him. Yeah. But yeah, the crash was unreal. And, the driving was unreal. And you just thought, oh my God, like, my heart was in my mouth. Like, and you don't always really get that with Formula One. You don't tend to get, you do, but, very rarely do you get a kind of heart in mouth. Oh my God, like that was actually really bad. Obviously you want them to be okay. But yeah, the level of racing is so much higher. Like, it's so like brilliant racing. The overtakes and like drifting, and yeah, I saw some really, really good racing yesterday. Really good.
Yeah, I hope anyone listening to this, the takeaway is go to your local racetrack. Yeah,
absolutely.
whether you're volunteering there or whether you just want to spectate.
They're so cheap. They're always cheap. And kids usually go free as well. So if you're under, I think like my local one, I think if you're under 16, I don't think you pay. So yeah, like if you've got kids, you can go for free, and yeah.
There you go.
Family day out.
Amazing. Well, before we wrap up, I want to ask, because we've got to plug all of your different channels. If people after watching this want to go and check out your content, where can they find you?
So I'm The Nursing Formula on Instagram, TikTok. I think that's all I've got. I'm trying to think. But yeah, so just The Nursing Formula. But TikTok, Instagram, I tend to upload a little bit, but TikTok I find easier. Yeah. For my little elderly brain, I need something as easy as possible. But yeah, so just The Nursing Formula, all lowercase. Yeah, easy to find.
Amazing. Well, they will be linked in the description, as will all of my social media at Down to the Tyre. Go on, follow. Yeah. And thank you so much, Jessica, for guesting on the podcast. I've absolutely loved having you on. Honestly, one of the most like insightful and fascinating guests I think I've had. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
And thank you to everyone who's listened. Go and follow Jessica. Go to your local racetrack. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Leave me a 5-star review. And I think that's all the things
I'll leave you a 5-star review.
Yeah. That's all the things I have to ask for the viewers. That's it. That's my full list. No more demands. And I'll be back next week with another episode.